Nothing else on Earth sounds quite like Beck, so it seems only appropriate for him to craft an album that feels like a soundtrack for interstellar travel. But is it a journey worth taking? My review of Hyperspace is coming up next on Track by Track. Hey everybody, my name's Kyle and this is Track by Track, music reviews, news, and commentary. Thanks for tuning in today, and if this is your first time here, please take a second to click subscribe so that you won't miss future reviews and more. Now before I dive into the review, I want to let you know that if you're interested in taking a look at the CD and packaging for this album, be sure to look for my Hyperspace unboxing video here on my channel. Beck has released a Target exclusive edition of this album, and I'll be letting you take a look inside that so that you can see if that's the one that you'll want to track down for your collection. Spoiler alert, the actual disc art on the CD is actually really cool, so check out the unboxing if only for that. It's been just 2 years since Beck released the album Colors, a relatively short wait considering the gap we'd seen between that album and his surprise Grammy-winning album Morning Phase in 2014. And as I said in my review of Colors in 2017, you could hardly imagine a more different sound than what we got between those two albums. With his 2019 follow-up Hyperspace, it sounds like Beck isn't straying too far from the synth-heavy mode that he established 2 years earlier. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I liked that sound on Colors, and it's an album that's grown on me even more as I've revisited it in the time since its release. But one of the concerns that I had with Colors was about how it felt more like Beck was following current trends rather than creating new ones. I'm tempted to say I have the same concerns about Hyperspace, especially considering how most of the music on the album was created in partnership with Pharrell Williams. When the lead single from the album came out back in April, I was definitely alarmed, shall we say. Saw Lightning may technically be a Beck song, but sonically it is very clearly born of Pharrell's musical aesthetic. I didn't like it, and I still don't. That being said, the track feels less offensive to me within the complete Hyperspace song cycle, and I'm thankful that it didn't turn out to be in any way representative of what the entire album would sound like. The problem is, though, none of the rest of the album managed to evoke as strong of an emotional response from me, positive or negative. I mean, it's not a good thing if what stands out most to you on an album is how its lead single feels like a remake of the Cha-Cha Slide. As the album opens, though, Beck establishes the tone for a set of music that's probably not what you were expecting based on the single. Hyperlife is not so much a song, but more of a prelude. It's a short, spacey, ethereal song that establishes on track 1 the general feel that you can expect from much of the rest of the album. The song could actually be more accurately titled Hyperspace Part 1, because that's actually what it is. We'll get a reprise of sorts when the title song comes up later in the song cycle. In any case, if the album's title of Hyperspace didn't tip you off that Beck was going for a more otherworldly sound, Hyperlife, as an opener, makes it clear. It's an interesting choice to open the album this way, and it definitely gets my attention, but I'm still not a fan of the unnecessary auto-tune on the vocals. It's very subtle on this song, but it's an annoying effect nonetheless, and we'll hear more of it as the album progresses. So if Hyperlife was a prelude, then it's track 2 that formally gets the album going. Uneventful Days actually feels rather appropriately titled. It's a fine enough song that seems to hover leisurely between slow and mid-tempo, but it never develops into anything especially interesting. In fact, the most curious thing about it is how it seems to crib its rhythm and melody from Take Me Home by Phil Collins. Even the instrumentation seems to emulate that mid-80s hit, which was a much better song than this. Saw Lightning comes up next, and as I said before, it's not good. I do like how propulsive the rhythm is, and I enjoy the contrast of the slide guitar against the retro synth sounds, but the rest of this song is a mess. And while Beck's lyrics have always been more fever dream stream of consciousness than profound statements with deep meaning, I've been more than accepting of that as one of his artistic eccentricities. Still, I can't help but roll my eyes at the opening verse. Hey, 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 saw lightning. Ho, 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 saw lightning. He, saw lightning. Ha, ha, ha. Things start to turn around on track 4 with Die Waiting. As one of the few songs without Pharrell's fingerprints on it, it easily stands out from the rest. and maybe I get a more positive impression of the track for that reason more than any other. It's not necessarily a standout track in Beck's discography, definitely an album song and not a single. It's probably not a song that you'll get stuck in your head after listening either. Still, I like the production here and all the instrumentation as well. What can I say? It's fine. On tracks 5 and 6, we get a sort of 1-2 punch of space-age R&B. First up is what for me is the most musically interesting song on the album. Chemical has some really beautiful instrumentation and unexpected melodies. While I'm generally not impressed with the influence that Pharrell has had on the music on this album, I think his R&B sensibilities are best executed here. That being said, there's some choices that don't quite work for me as the song builds. I'm not wild about Beck's staccato vocal on the bridge, and the Beatlesque guitar accents feel very out of place. Then on See Through, Beck reunites with Colors producer Greg Kurstin for another solid R&B flavored track. This song may not be as melodically strong as Chemical, but it does deliver a more cohesive listening experience from start to finish. I also like hearing Beck's falsetto on the chorus, which reminded me of another recent release. I reviewed the new Gallant album a few weeks ago, and either of these two songs would have fit perfectly on that record. So we're just past the halfway point on the album, and we finally arrive at the title track. As I mentioned earlier, Hyperspace is a sort of reprise from Hyper Life at the beginning of the album. As a short intro to the song cycle, I think Hyper Life worked well, but here, Hyperspace stretches the theme past its breaking point. The addition of an unrelenting snare drum beat throughout the track is nothing short of annoying. I'll likely be skipping this song often on future listens. Beck shifts back into morning phase territory on Stratosphere. Now, that's not to say that the song feels out of place on Hyperspace. It still has all of the ethereal sonic characteristics of much of the rest of this album. And on its own, it's a fine song. But that's about it. It's fine, inoffensive, and unremarkable. Although it must be said that the lyrics on the chorus are predictable to the point of being almost cringeworthy. I can almost see the songwriting session for this. In the stratosphere. Oh, I got it. There's nowhere to go from here. Dark Places at track 9 is one of the more interesting tracks on Hyperspace. With a little less drums, this is another song I could have easily heard in the morning phase song cycle. I do like the instrumentation here quite a bit, actually. There's a lot of space-age sounding music on this album, but this track actually sounds as if it was, I don't know, performed by a futuristic band of androids. Everything from the synths to the percussion are highly quantized with rigid percussion that feels almost mechanical, but in a way that serves the song well. Still, the fade-out ending feels weak, as if maybe he ran out of ideas. The penultimate song on Hyperspace is probably the second most out-of-place song after Saw Lightning. Star is one of the few non-Pharrell collaborations on the album, and it really makes me wish that he'd explored further down this musical path. This track finds Beck in Prince mode, which isn't unfamiliar territory for him. He tapped that mind to great effect on his Midnight Vultures album, and this may be my favorite Prince-inspired song that he's done since. It's certainly one of my favorite tracks on this album. If I have a complaint, though, it's that the song feels unfinished. At under 3 minutes, it's one of the shorter songs on the album, but I think there was still plenty of room to explore here. The album closes in a way reminiscent of how Colors ended on that previous album, and on Hyperspace as well. Beck brings things in for a gentle landing. At nearly 5 minutes, Everlasting Nothing is actually the longest song on the album, with most other tracks clocking in under 4 minutes, but this song feels like it earns its length, developing nicely as it plays out. Based on its title, it's no surprise that the song has an unmistakable spiritual element to it, highlighted by the gospel-flavored backing vocals that emerge on the bridge. So, is the everlasting nothing the afterlife? Or is it the vast emptiness of space Beck seems to be exploring on Hyperspace? Or maybe both. So as I think I said when I reviewed Colors 2 years ago, I think Beck is unquestionably a great artist, but his output is still hit or miss for me. On this latest release, there's not much that truly hits, in my opinion. There's definitely a track or two that miss completely, but most of the stuff on here just sort of lands somewhere in the middle. Much of it sounds like it could have been leftover ideas from either Colors or Morning Phase, which may sound promising depending on how you feel about those albums. I like them both, but leftovers are leftovers for a reason. So, I'm giving Hyperspace by Beck an X rating of 5 out of 10. It's a glossy and occasionally beautiful journey into the void, but like its outer space theme suggests, there's a lot of emptiness in between the stars. Once again, my name's Kyle, and this has been Track by Track. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, plus check out some of these other videos below that I think you might also enjoy. And of course, be sure to subscribe, because true music fans always want new releases the day they come out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.